So, and
Right.
that's just 3. Those are just 3 decisions out of probably another 30 more that you have to know when you start making the game,
Yeah.
to really, yeah.
In the distant future, vampires rule the night, but their numbers are dwindling. One podcast is unlike all the others, half human, half vampire. This is Lefty Speaks, the official podcast for Vampire Hunter D.
You reminded me of two things. Just what you were saying now. There were two things, and me and Scott were involved in one of them. A few years back, there was an Armored Core tabletop RPG that was on Kickstarter. Those people, it looked beautiful, but they did not apparently get the rights to Armored Core.
They
So
were
they had this,
negotiating the rights.
right,
They
but they
launched
put it up
without
already.
finishing it.
They launched it. So I had put $200 up because I was like, there's no way I'm not going to own an Armored Core tabletop RPG with mechs,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then in the middle of it, it suddenly, I forgot what they called it eventually, but it got changed. And I was like, this is no longer Armored Core. I am no longer interested. I'm canceling my $200 pledge because I wanted the whole shebangy bang,
Oh,
Yep,
yeah,
I
yeah,
jumped out
I've done
too.
that too many times, too many
Yeah. And
times.
so that's one. That's one. The second thing, and I put a link in the chat box here, which I'll share on the Discord at some point. But there's a Gundam, Mobile Suit Gundam, one of my favorite franchises of all time. There is a tabletop miniature game that Bandai Namco has developed. It's going to drop real soon in the States. They are willfully going against the juggernaut that is known as Warhammer 40K. They know this. It's part of their strategy, right? But here's the crazy part. Not many people know this. In the Bay Area, someone had developed that same game about 5 to 6 years ago. And this young man, yeah, he has a Facebook group. And if he's still, I'll see if I can find it. But he had started building, developing, sculpting, laying out the map, creating a rule system. And he claimed that he had gotten the rights from Bandai, right? But then all of a sudden, he stopped production on everything. And now Bandai Namco is basically taking, I mean, I'm not saying they stole his system because he probably didn't, but he put in years of work with the expectation that he was going to launch his own Kickstarter to finance and distribute a Mobile Suit Gundam miniature set and rule system. And it all got taken away from him because everything looks like Gundam, so he can't rebrand it,
Yeah, he can't,
you
like,
know?
yeah, he doesn't own it. I mean, it's the same
Right.
problem where if you write a script, for another property, technically, legally, you're not
Mm-hmm.
even supposed to be able to do that. I mean, you can do
Mm-hmm.
it for yourself, but as soon as you make it public,
Market it. Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, as soon as you market it, it's a problem,
Right.
and so, yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah, and that's goes back to what we were talking about really early on, where you want your fan base to be able to engage in these different things,
Right.
especially if like if you're a big movie franchise or a big video game franchise that you might have 5 to 10 years between releases, and then your fan base is hungry for that material, hungry to expand in that world, live in that
Yeah.
world setting. How do you do that? I mean, you have to give certain amount of freedom for fans to do fan creations, and yeah, I'm also surprised more and more that more uh established companies that have had like
Mm.
really successful franchise like film and TV franchises haven't gone the route of tabletop role playing games because again, it's not easy, but when you
No.
compare it to, like a video game, yeah, it's a lot easier, a lot more contained
Mm-hmm.
to create a tabletop role playing game, and you can and it's much easier to test it and make adjustments on play tests and things like that. One of my best friends is John Wick, like the real guy, not the real person, not the
Right.
not the movie guy.
Right.
and he created, co-created Legend of the Five Rings, and he
Wow.
co-created 7C, and he's a very prolific game designer and writer. And I get the pleasure of him going, "Dude, you want to play test my new game?" I'm like, "Oh, sure." You know, and then you see the difference in what how the game evolves through the play tests, and again, that's just text based. I mean, just there's
Right.
no, I mean, you can add art later on, but I mean, it's really just building the mechanics and what kind of story and characters are you playing, and what's the purpose of the game, and everything. So,
Just
yeah.
make sure you have the license before you
Yes,
sign
but that
Yeah,
is the single most important thing. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, negotiate being in the middle of negotiating the license is not the same as having a finalized contract.
yeah,
And
I feel
oh
yeah.
man,
yeah. We had to go after a lot of people, when I got a team together to uh make a live action version of The Last Unicorn. The
Mhm.
writer Peter Beagle had really been screwed over by a lot, all basically all the entities had screwed him over. I mean, he was the one that wrote the novel. He was the one that wrote the screenplay that, for the feature animated film, of based on his novel, and he just got screwed over right and left. And back he didn't have any contracts for any games, video games, because it was before that time, and so we had to go through. I mean, the music rights, the video game rights, the tabletop rights, the RPG rights, because they were people that were selling versions of that stuff unofficially all over the place. And so the first thing we had to do was we had to go out and we had to bring all the rights, either shut people down, or buy the rights and bring them all back to one entity, so that we could actually then move forward in a coordinated, a planned, fashioned with kind of a making sure that that world setting, that brand had one vision, one direction. And then and eh, lawsuits happened. The manager, Connor, the manager, his business manager and partner, was found embezzling from him, or
Of course.
and then there's lawsuits, and the whole thing. It was like this beautiful, beautiful plan all came crashing down.
Yeah, I would say for fans who really want to create or be involved in that world, my best advice would be to, do fan fiction. You know, I mean, in short term, it's free. And you can get your friends together. You can do a fan fiction group. I mean, I'm not even kidding. When I lived in New York City, there was a very, very prominent Star Wars fan fiction group, and they all used to hang out incidentally in Union Square Park, 14th Street and Broadway, or 14th Street and 7th, whatever you want to say. And I remember them, and I wasn't a part of it because I'm not really a big fan of fan fiction, but I feel that there are so many things that if you're not business savvy, because to create this type of thing, you have to start getting into legalities, publishing rights, distribution concepts, and also obviously financing. I mean, writing a text-based adventure is probably the easiest thing to do if you want to get into game design, because God knows there are text-based adventures that go back to the very beginning of home PC, and even back when you could only get the internet in libraries and government installations. People were creating that
Ah,
stuff
yes.
way back
Oh
in
my
the day.
god.
oh,
The
the old
BBS.
mud games?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
ones that were like ASCII based, where you could get pictures through ASCII. I'm going way back,
Hey, no,
but
there's still one. A buddy of mine has been doing one of those for like 20 some years.
right, yeah, people
I
love
mean,
those.
like it's
Right.
still there, and they're like he's not giving up on it because he's got like 25 years invested in this. I've never actually played one, but
Oh, I did. No,
it
never
it
again.
I mean, it's interesting because it is like literally a video game, but all done text-based. And
Yep.
yeah, I mean, it's like LARPing virtually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
and
Through
people,
through
yeah,
uh through old text-based system, and they have, the rules and they're, I mean, I don't know, he's king so and so now, Yeah.
Lord Conqueror. Yeah.
Exactly, and, he's not gonna give that up. That's 25 years invested in that.
But and that gets to my point was that that Star Wars fan fiction group, they actually had people like the 501st cosplay group. They had people that
Yeah,
were Imperials and then people that were Rebels. So you had people who started off as like bigs and eventually became Mon Mothma type
yeah,
people, like
yeah,
or what's his name, Bail Organa level,
yeah,
getting into Star Wars lore here. So I guess what my point is that I know that it's very frustrating for certain fans, especially if you're casual and you're not really engaged with how things are made, how the sausage is made. But understand, no one is trying to disappoint you. It's just that you don't always have the financial or even legal or technical resources to put together something of that magnitude because everything costs money.
yeah.
Oh,
I
and
mean,
time.
even if we
Just
did, yeah,
And
even if we
time
did a
is money.
time.
Kickstarter. Yep, yep. I mean, I have so many people 'cause as I think everyone on this panel has, on our podcast have done Kickstarter.
Yep.
And back in the day, I was consulting and helping people build kickstarting, successful Kickstarters. And a lot of people come to me and I would say, well, you have to understand that the Kickstarter itself is a production. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not just a simple way of making money. I mean, like there are a bunch of game companies that came to me and said, "Oh, well, you've raised $3 million on Kickstarter. Why don't you advise us on how to do this?" And I said, "Okay, but it the first thing is you need to treat it like an actual production. And then the your opening day, you have to have weeks or months of prep for that, including, promotion for the Kickstarter, and that's just to raise money, and then it depends on how much, and then, depending upon Kickstarter and the crowdfunding is its own ecosystem by itself. I mean, it's its own industry. And, I remember at one point, I mean, I did a Kickstarter for the premiere and premiere party of Sushi Girl,
Mm.
because our investors were amazing. They supported us I mean, in every way possible. It was a tiny little movie. We always called it the little movie that could, because we had Mark Hamill and Tony Todd, and there's a great cast. But it was originally a $200,000 movie with that, and then we ended up with getting, I think it was like 290 was the end cost of filming. I mean, and that was with that cast. It was crazy. But we wanted to have like an official premiere, like a real premiere. And the investors are kind of tapped out. They're kind of like, okay, well, we've taken you to we've paid for you to go to San Diego Comic-Con twice, and all
Mm.
these different places, and we've gotten a lot of interest, but we hadn't released, it wasn't like official released yet. And so we kickstarted it. We raised 20 grand in 20 days for the premiere. And but that same thing couldn't happen just like a year and a half later, because the Kickstarter, the people that were using Kickstarter got a lot more savvy, and they not that anything bad happened, right? But you get more demanding. The more established Kickstarter, when it was new, it's just new, it's exciting, and everyone's trying it out. But the longer Kickstarter existed and the more established it got, the more people wanted a greater return on their investment, and were a lot less forgiving for, mistakes because it was established.
Yes.
So, and now there's different crowdfunding opportunities, and each one kind of has its own ecosystem. So even that alone, I mean, you can't just, I mean, I know one game company was like, "Well, it's free money." I'm like, "No,
No,
it's
it's
not.
not.
It's not free money.
No.
Do not think of it that way." Yeah,
And if you do a Kickstarter and you don't you betray the people who gave you the money,
Yeah.
oh, I think of one that I think Brandon, this will get your goad going. Robotech Tactics.
Yes.
Oh, good lord. That basically killed Palladium Games. They screwed up in so many ways. Like they got a fraud investigation. You know, people were
Wow.
pushing for the state attorney general to go after them because they did some really stupid things that I can see why people would allege that they committed fraud.
Wow.
And it became an absolute nightmare for them because they really botched a Kickstarter. It could have been an amazing
I think
opportunity for
more of
them,
these, yeah,
but
more of these places should be investigated because,
Yeah.
I mean, just recently, I mean, I've backed, I'm a bit, my vice is probably, kickstarting big games, and I have 4 big games, and I usually go all in. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I don't wanna miss anything." So I go all in, and yeah, there've uh, been a few that that
yeah, I
were
just backed
basically
one.
rugs. Yeah, and,
I just backed one that it closed like 2 weeks ago. So we're gonna see what happens.
Wow.
yeah, well, now we're hoping, right? This is
Well, this
we're
wasn't
talking a little
CMON.
about, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we should probably talk about that.
The Cool Mini or Not is like the giant one, and, and it's falling, and I mean, I've backed, as you may have seen behind me, I have a lot of their games.
And what was that called again?
Cool Mini or Not is the company,
Omni
and
or not? Okay.
Cool Mini or Not, and
Cool Mini.
they
CMON.
started yeah, they started with, I think Massive Darkness was kind of their first one, and I
No, the first Zombicide.
really? The first one was Zombicide?
Zombicide
I
was the
thought,
first one.
okay, okay,
And this was when Kickstarter was really new. They had
yeah,
taken it around to a bunch of people. All the publishers said no. So they decided, well, crowdfunding is getting started. So let's try it.
yeah,
And since a lot of people didn't know what crowdfunding was, Kickstarter was pretty new, it it wasn't going great. And then an article dropped on Penny Arcade about it. And it was light switch difference, and it blew up, it got funded, and they were born. And they became kind of the poster child for miniature based crowdfund games. And
yeah, they had a system for sure. Yeah, they
they
had the
have made
formula.
just some incredible games.
Yeah, yeah,
Some
yeah,
of my
yeah.
favorite board games are from Cool Mini or Not.
Oh, yeah.
The Eric Lang trilogy, Blood Rage.
Oh, yeah, Blood Rage
Um,
is
you've got
fantastic.
Ankh right
Ri
behind you,
Yep, yep,
and
yep.
the one in the middle, the
Rising
Japanese theme,
Sun.
Rising Sun. Thank you.
Yeah,
And now, they are in such deep financial straits
Hmm.
that they are selling off their IP to other companies,
yeah.
which I am
Wow.
glad that it's not, that other active companies have ended up with some of the rights so that it's not like, it's going to disappear forever. They may never, see another edition, but it it is sad to me that we're seeing a giant fall, and I think it brings up part of the danger with making games and crowdfunding is that you've got to deliver them. And I would fear kind of the same thing if we were trying to bite off more than we could chew.
That's
Um
why I was just gonna say that this kinda goes
it's
back to your point. Yeah. Spreading too much, the butter too thin on the bread. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And that's
And
clearly what
how
Cool Mini
many
are. I mean, they bought one of my backed a game called Hell, HEL, from Mythic Games,
Mhm.
which they went under, and Cool Mini or Not bought Hell, and they were gonna, supposedly it was basically done, and then and so they've got the rights. They're supposed to fulfill for us, and now Cool Mini or Not's going. I'm like, oh no, it's like this is like year 6 waiting for this game to come out. Yeah,
Wow.
And
yeah,
I'm thankful that of the Kickstarters I've backed, only one has been a complete and utter like crater failure, just burned. And there are a couple that I thought, is this one going to ever deliver? And to me, that is part of the risk that I think you sign up for with Kickstarter is you're
Yep.
giving a chance to something. Um, and I'm glad I've backed dozens of campaigns across a wide spectrum, and to have only one be a complete failure, I'll count that as a win. Some of them
Yeah.
have delivered less than stellar results,
Yeah.
but by and large, I've had a great experience with Kickstarter. And some
Yep.
of my
Same here.
best
Yeah.
experiences have been with a first time creator, particularly in the board game space. There was one game that I backed called Honor Among Thieves, and was a first time creator, and he laid out his vision and what he wanted to do and how he was doing it. And what I loved about this guy was he never tried to hide anything. If he made mistakes or ran into problems, he would post an update about it and ask feedback, and hey backers, here's what I've run into, I think I've screwed up, or hey, I've got something I'm unsure about. And I loved that because he wasn't trying to dodge responsibility. He wasn't trying to gaslight anyone. And I like the fact that he turned to the people who had gave him money to try and make his small dream come true for advice and help. And, ended up the game came out, we got the game, and it's like, great job. You did something really difficult, and you didn't try to do it on your own. You didn't try to make excuses. You owned up to your mistakes. You asked for help. You asked for advice. But ultimately, the decision was his. And he, I think, did a phenomenal job of what I think that core intent and use of Kickstarter is. It's a guy
Yeah.
who never would have gotten a chance if he'd gone to a major publisher to be able to have that kind of control and direction to you know make something that he really wanted to make. I think of Gloomhaven with Isaac. Without Kickstarter, it never would have happened. And look at
Yep.
what Gloomhaven and Frosthaven have become today.
Yeah. And then like you said, like Tainted Grail. I mean, there's two video games, a board game, a role playing game. I mean, I've backed probably 40 or 50 different
Wow.
comic book creators, complete indie. No, I mean, there were maybe 2 that had done some work for the industry, but mostly they're just full on indie,
Hmm.
and, I think I've only had one disappointment out of 40. And the same thing with, some role-playing games, like there's 2 that they had one guy had his wife got cancer, and, like, in the middle of him trying, and so it was like 5 years later we got the book, you know? But, again, Scott was saying, he was coming back, giving us exact updates. He's saying, "Hey, I know this isn't an excuse, but I'm doing this all by myself," and we were all there going, "Hey, just keep at it, keep at it. We want you to succeed." And we ended up getting a really great hardcover, Norse inspired, D&D-esque game system. Fantastic, for one dude, all doing it himself. I
Yep.
mean, obviously, he hired some artists to do artwork for him, but yeah, that's exhilarating to be able to support, creatives, in a small way,
Hmm.
like that. So I hope that that our podcast can be doing that for our Patreons and the people that support us. I hope that they y- you know are excited to at the discussions that we have in Discord and I think we have some good surprises
Hmm.
for people in the near future, with some, the several of the things that we're building with the Vampire Hunter D intellectual property.
Yeah, one of the things that I would love people to be able to chime in on is, even if it's something we can't get to for years, it's something that we do want to do, especially because of our love of games. Like in my head, I I have living rent free. I some version of a mashed together of a bunch of CRPGs that I've played, because I've got the two Pathfinder CRPGs, that you look at things like Solasta, Crown of the Magister, BG3, or any of the Baldur's Gate games.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm, mhm,
I would love, I think the VHD universe lends itself really well to something like that, where one of the things I love about these CRPGs is that you're not playing the mythical figures of the universe. You're not playing, their equivalent of D. You're not the demigod. You're you're kind of the almost regular folk. Not quite, because you're an adventurer. You've got some means to help face what the crisis is, but you're definitely not the best equipped to deal with it. You're not the ideal candidate. You're not going to be just like, aha, smack, problem solved.
Right.
Uh, and so I love that idea of a CRPG in the Vampire Hunter D universe, where you've got, let's say you've got a sergeant out of the Frontier Defense Force. You've got a sheriff's deputy from the frontier. You've got a minor hunter character that have all come together because, oh crap, there's this problem that we've stumbled across, and we're it to deal with it. Quick, grab the traveling doctor that we've come across, and we got to deal with this. We can't wait for someone else to show up. We're the cavalry, whether we want to be or not. And I love those of immersive, kind of storytelling designs. And yeah, I'm curious to hear what other people thinking. Like, what are the dreams of something that kind of lives rent free in your head? Uh, Settings and characters out of the Vampire Hunter D universe. Like, I would love to. I don't want to say which book or spoil too much, but there's one book where um, the noble has an army of kind of almost amphibious. It's semi-amphibious mutants that they gel really well with traveling through and melding into water and rainy, swampy, water-filled environments. I remember reading that description and going, wow, this would make a great, turn-based fight scene.
Hmm.
But instead of it being D, who's just, able to be like, oh, well, your trap is great and all, but no, it's not. But if you're a group of, semi well equipped people, all of a sudden you're in a dire strait, and you've really got to, get the tactical brain going. So, you know, that's that's something that pops into my head when I read some of the VHD stories. So, if you're listening to this, watching it, and you've got things like that going through your head, I would encourage you,
Let us
hop in
know.
the Discord. Yeah, let
yeah.
us know. Give us a bit of context to what you're thinking, and why, and give some, I will call it comparison, because I think a lot of people are aware of, hey, I like CRPGs, and here's some examples of ones I really like that I think do the genre well. Or, the example that one person on Discord put, the asking about a Metroidvania and a Kickstarter Iga had
Mhm.
done to make a new game a couple years ago. I think those are fantastic examples, because, it's like, hey, here's what I'm thinking, kind of broadly, and here's an example or two. I think that's phenomenal. And I would love to hear other people's thoughts of, like, what are your dreams, aspirations, want list? What's your wish list?
Hmm. That would be
Yeah.
great. And I mean, when you were talking about that, I was thinking in my head, I would love to see like a super deformed Vampire Hunter D game in the style of like Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy 2 or Fantasy Star even, which is even closer to the Vampire Hunter D universe. If people remember the Fantasy Star franchise, um, I think there's so much possibility out there, and I've supported so many original materials on Kickstarter and generally been pleased. I mean, there are a few that didn't
Hmm.
muster,
Yeah.
but generally speaking, I think that you have to let people know what you want. They say a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So, even if certain things are out of our possibility, it's not impossible in the world, if you understand what I'm saying. So, yeah, I mean, it'd be great. I mean, I would love a Vampire Hunter D game like that, you
Yeah.
know, because I mean, I feel like I've played so many games that kind of taken the Vampire Hunter D ideas and structure and world crazy stuff. But if you took the original game, original world, and dropped it into a really cool context, another
Hmm.
one,
Yeah.
like a turn-based, 2D, game like a Chrono Trigger, or even like an Ocarina of Time, but with Vampire Hunter D in it, where you
Oh my
really get
God.
into space and
Oh my
time.
God. Yeah.
You know what I mean? That would be really, really cool. And
Yeah.
yeah, and
Well,
I
I mean,
would say again,
there's so many clever and fun thing because the world is
hmm
just so vast. I mean, and there's so many things that can be done. It would be a lot of fun. And the great thing is that we can develop this stuff, by sharing our ideas and knowing what we as fans like, but also what people in our Discord like, and that fuels not just the ideas, but also the motivation. And so if we're like, hey, at some point when we feel that we can handle it, that might be something that we could expand into, because between the three of us, I know we've all worked with and for you know established game companies, indie game companies, experienced game writers. We've got one of them right here, and we've got, if we can't do it, we know people who can. And a lot of that is assembling the right team,
Hmm.
and so it's not just about the money, it's also about having the people that get the vision and have the work ethic and and really want to make this happen.
Yep.
So they're steps, baby steps right now, baby steps.
Yeah, I
hmm
remember the example somebody gave me once of not all effort is not all good effort is correct effort. Like if your goal is to get from Boston to Houston and you safely arrive in Wichita, Kansas, well, you've safely arrived to another major city, but you're in the wrong city.
yeah.
And so you've got to, it's not just the desire to go or the technical ability to get from point A to point B. You've got to make sure that you've done it on the correct route with the correct way. So it's not just arriving somewhere safely, it's arriving where you were supposed to get safely in good order. And I remember, this is probably 8, 10 years ago. Um, there was a group that made a big push on the internet and social media, going so far as to announce actors and a director and all this about doing a live action Vampire Hunter D movie. And I remember seeing this and going, funny, because at the time, this was before Sam Hadida died. So Neil was at Davis Film still. And I knew, like, wait a minute, my buddy's company, that they have the rights to this. And I think
I
he would have
remember that
told me
call.
if, so,
Ha!
if they had done something. So I'm on the phone with Digital Frontier Japan and Neil because I saw this and I'm like, hey guys, uh, and when somebody had asked this group, what are you doing? How do you have the rights for this? Oh, we don't have the rights. We're just putting together all the elements, and then we're going to go ask, like Sony or someone to go get the rights for us. And I just like I face palmed. I'm like that's not how any of this work.
Mhm.
That's not how it works.
Yeah.
And do I think they meant well? Do I think they were passionate about it? Yeah, they seem to, generally really want to do it, and like, yeah, this would be an amazing project. We think we can pull this off. And I'm like, you can be zealous for something. You can be passionate about something. But if you channel that effort in a very poorly chosen direction, it, you're not just going to get nothing good out of it. It may blow up in your face. And as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Oi. So, yeah, it's one of those things that I hope that with the fact that VHD has such a active, passionate community and such, decades of brand awareness, I sincerely hope that people keep giving us their feedback and ideas, and if you will, keeping us in bounds. Because as humans, it's way too easy to get distracted or fixated on something. And I fear the development of ego or arrogance of I know best, this is what we're doing, and not listening to feedback from people. Now you can't follow everyone's feedback. You can't make everyone happy. I think trying to be everything to everyone is the best way to make everyone miserable. But I I think there should be multiple kinds of accountability. Like we need to be accountable to each other as colleagues, as creators, as people doing the work. We need to be accountable to Kikuchi-san for his
Yep.
decades
Yep.
of work of what he created. We wouldn't be here without that. We need to be accountable to longtime fans, and we need to be accountable to newer fans.
Mhm.
How that looks, exactly, I don't know. I don't think anyone could tell you. Um, the just ask Star Wars fans of the ride of the last few decades. uh, there's ups and downs, good and bad. Uh, so I thank you all for being on the journey with us, and for whenever anyone ends up hearing this or listening to it, thank you for being on the path, going down the journey with us, because I think the journey there is as important as the stops along it. To, it's not just, what is your final destination. um if you're doing a road trip vacation, you can have a lot of fun on the way.
Well said.
So on that note, we look forward to some future conversations with you all. There are a couple of things that we want to tackle, particularly as we get towards the fall. um, Post convention season, I think, will be a great time for some of these conversations. We'd love to talk about fan art and creation with more fan artists and creators. And so we've already been in contact with a number of people about that. We'd also like a little bit of interactivity with you all. As many of you saw the image that Christopher Shy made of a rendition of D as the Justice Tarot card, we're looking at, what would be the lineup of the major arcana, the 22 cards from that are the higher arcana, the major arcana of the tarot deck. So we've put together a spreadsheet of what our main ideas are for what we think out of the different parts of the D universe could represent each of the cards, their theme, their elements. Well, we'll put together a podcast talking about that. We'd also love to, as a part of that, hear feedback from people. So we'll down the road, we'll share this list of what our thoughts have been, and we'd love to get feedback from people of what your thoughts are of, existing adaptations or the from the breadth of the universe. And that's one of those things where I think for brainstorming that, to me, I think it would be a fun bit of community involvement. So we're hoping you all will weigh in on it and give us your thoughts. I'm very curious to see what people have to say that we haven't thought of. That to me is part of the fun of this. And as Brandon brought up before, when we have a little more time, would love to see people in some of the different video gaming circles. Um, I know for myself, I'm not playing as broad of a selection of video multiplayer video games these days, outside of 14, which I'm hoping I'll have time to start playing again here in a couple weeks. But you know, it's one of those things that if there's some collaborative multiplayer games that people are passionate about, please let's talk about that on Discord too. So,
Till next time.
yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Happy hunting, and we hope this recording finds you well.
Thank you for listening to Lefty Speaks, the official Vampire Hunter D podcast, hosted by Brandon Easton, Neal Fischer, and Scott McLean. This podcast is created by Unified Pictures and Nine Realms. Narration by Lauren Evallen-Muller. Recording and editing by Nine Realms. Produced by Scott McLean and Ian E. Muller. Based on the works created by Hideyuki Kikuchi. Happy hunting!